All right, so again, we're reviewing for the final exam. These are the types of questions you're going to see on there. We are going to take a quiz today, and all of these kinds of questions will be on that quiz also. So make sure you're asking questions if you have any while we go. On this first one here, we want to get that a by itself. So we're going to circle that, and we're going to draw the line of equality. All right, so the a is on the left side of the equal sign. We're trying to get rid of everything else over there. There is one thing about this equation that I need to do before I go any further. Kiera, what is it?
Box.
We're gonna
The whole thing.
the whole thing?
Yeah.
Not the whole thing.
Not the whole thing.
You just mean the square, right?
Yeah.
So we're gonna put a box around the square, and so not just the square, but everything that's being squared. So the parentheses, right? So we're gonna put a box around that because we want to get that by itself before we can get rid of the square. So what do I need to get rid of? I need to get rid of the -1. So we'll add 1 on each side, and that's going to cancel out the -1, leaving just the a plus 1 squared. And on the right side, 24 plus 1 is 25. Now that I've gotten rid of that -1, I have the square by itself, so what do I need to do? We're going to get rid of the square by taking the square root. We'll do that on both sides. So on the left side, the square and the square root cancel, leaving a plus 1. And on the right side, we're looking for the number that multiplies by itself to get 25, which is 5 and -5. Exactly. So we get two different answers here. When we take the square root, you could get a +5 or you could get a -5. And the reason is 5 squared, if we put the 5 where the a plus 1 is, 5 squared is 25, but also -5 squared is 25. So it could be either one. So a plus 1 could be +5 or a plus 1 could be -5. Okay, now we'll just continue. On the equation on the left side here, what do we do to get rid of the +1? Subtract 1. We'll do that on both sides. 1's cancel, leaving a equals 4. And then in the other equation, we'll draw our line of equality and do the same thing. Subtract 1 on each side. This time when the 1's cancel, we get a equals -6. So our two answers here, both of them will work for a. We get a equals 4 or a equals -6. Second equation, we want to get b by itself. So we're going to circle the b, we're going to draw the line of equality, and kind of like the last one, there's one other thing we need to do to set this up, which is put a box around the square root this time, right? So just like a square, we have to get the square root by itself before we can get rid of it. So there's two things outside of the square root we need to get rid of, which is the 3 and the -9. Let's start with the -9 because we're doing order of operations backwards, SADMAP, when we're trying to get rid of things. So we're going to get rid of subtraction before we get rid of multiplication. Adding 9 to both sides. We get 9's cancel over here. Leaves 3 square root of 5b minus 6. And on the other side, 12 plus 9 is 21. And we still need to get rid of the 3 by doing what? Divide by 3. And those 3's cancel, leaves the square root of 5b minus 6. And on the other side, 21 divided by 3 is 7. Okay? Then what? We're gonna get rid of the square we're gonna get rid of the square root by taking the square. So we're going to square both sides. That leaves 5b minus 6 by itself on the right. And on the left side, 7 squared is 49. Now what? Add 6 on each side. 6's are going to cancel, leaving 5b, and 49 plus 6 is 55. And still need to get rid of that 5. Divide by 5. So we get b equals 11. This one here, we've got c's in a couple of different places, so we're going to have to do some simplifying. Notice though that the c's are all on one side, so we're not going to have to pick on the little guy. We're not going to have to get rid of c's on one side so that we get them all on the other. We're just going to have to simplify, and then we should be able to get the c by itself from that point. So what's the first thing we're going to do to simplify? Okay, so we're going to start by distributing, but there's nothing in front of the parentheses besides the negative, so we could make this a -1, and then we'll distribute that -1. Even if you don't put a 1 there, you should get the same thing. So if you distribute a negative times c is going to be -c, and a negative times 4 is going to be -4. So we distribute that -1 and get what here? What's -1 times c? Negative c, or I'm going to put -1c, but it's the same thing. And -1 times 4? -4. And then the other one we can distribute is that 3. 3 times 2c is 6c. Is that positive or negative? Positive. And then 3 times -5? -15. And then we'll bring down our 2 here. Don't forget that 2. That's kind of important. And -32 on the other side of the equal sign. After we distribute, then we're going to... Okay, so the other part of simplifying is adding like terms. No like terms to add on the left side, but we have the -1c and positive 6c. That'll give us what? 5c. And then we also have, we've got 3 numbers that are like terms. Some people forget to combine those numbers, but they are like terms, so you want to combine those also. So let's just do them 2 at a time here. 2 minus 4 is going to give us -2, and then -2 minus 15 is going to give us -17. So combining all 3 of those together, we get -17. On the other side, we have our -32 still. And now we have the c on one side. There's only one c left. So now we just want to get this c by itself. So what do we do next? Add 17. 17s are going to cancel, leaves 5c. And -32 plus 17? -15. And then divide by 5. 5's cancel, leaves c equals what? -3. Alright, last problem. We want to get this d by itself. This is pretty similar to the second one we did. So we have a square root. We want to get that d by itself. We can't get rid of the square root until the square root's by itself. Notice that when I'm putting the box around it here, I'm putting it around this +3, but not this one, because this one is outside the square root. Anything that's outside the square root should not be in this box here. Alright, so first thing I need to get rid of is this +3 right here, right? So we're going to get rid of that +3 by subtracting 3. And so those cancel each other out. Leaves the square root of d plus 3 equals 3. So 6 minus 3 is 3. And then square both sides. So now we have the square root by itself. We can get rid of the square root by squaring it. Square and square root cancel, leaving d plus 3 equals 9. 3 squared is 9, right? Then what? Subtract 3 on each side. 3's cancel, leaves d equals 6.